About a month ago, I made a video talking about players who I think will have breakout seasons in 2021-22. Now today I want to do something similar, but instead look at players that I think will bounce back this upcoming season. Guys that had a bit of an off year, didn't really play up to their standards, that I think can get back to form in 2022. I'm going to talk about 5 players today, but as always I want to hear your guys' thoughts, so if there's any players that I do not bring up in this video that you think are in for a big bounce back season, let me know down below in the comment section. And also, if you guys are as excited as I am for the start of the regular season, then be sure to leave this video a like. That means all of you should like the video, no exceptions. Unless you don't have a YouTube account, then I guess that's an exception. Starting off the video with Boston Bruins centerman Charlie Coyle. He got off to a pretty good start in Boston after coming over from the Minnesota Wild at the 2019 trade deadline. Played extremely well for the Bruins in their run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019. Followed that up with a pretty decent 2019-20 regular season, and then was rewarded last offseason with a pretty hefty contract extension from the Bruins. And then last season, 2020-21, his play kind of fell off a little bit. He wasn't the same player that we saw him be when he initially got to Boston, especially the same player that we saw him be in those 2019 playoffs. Charlie Coyle has never been known as a player that puts up a ridiculous amount of points, but last season was the worst offensive season of his career. He had a career low in goals with 6, also a career low in points per game, and on top of the offensive struggles, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into things, his advanced analytics were not good either. His even strength possession metrics were bad, his expected goals, all that stuff was bad. It was just a really rough year for Charlie Coyle. I think it's especially important for him to bounce back if the Boston Bruins want to be a legit contender, because now they no longer have David Krejci playing in front of him. Charlie Coyle is now the Bruins' second line center behind Patrice Bergeron. He's getting paid like a second line center. Like I said, last offseason he got that hefty contract extension from the Bruins. Now is the time for him to start living up to that. This next player is a pretty obvious one, Seth Jones of the Chicago Blackhawks. Seth Jones is a pretty polarizing player. There is a lot of differing opinions when it comes to Seth Jones on what caliber of a defenseman he really is. Is he an elite number 1? Is he just a solid top 4? But no matter how you feel about Seth Jones, if you think he's overrated, if you think he's underrated, I feel like we can all agree on the fact that we know he's better than the way he played this past season in Columbus. Now, if Seth Jones was still a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets heading into this upcoming season, I don't think there would have been a ton of pressure on him to bounce back, just because Columbus is a team that doesn't really have a whole lot of expectations in general. They're kind of in the midst of a rebuild, but now with Seth Jones being in Chicago, taking into account all the assets the Blackhawks gave up to bring Seth Jones in the first place, and then signing him to that massive contract extension that pays him $9 million a season, now I feel like there's a ton of pressure on Seth Jones to bounce back. I feel like the Blackhawks made it pretty clear based off of all the moves they've made so far this offseason that they aren't really interested in rebuilding at the moment. They're trying to win right now, and in order for them to do that, I feel like we have to see Seth Jones get back to being the player he was in the 2017-18 season. If he has another year like the one he just had in Columbus, there's going to be some cause for concern. The first of 2 goaltenders we're going to talk about in this video, Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, who was, in my opinion, based off the expectations I had for him, one of the more disappointing players from this past season. One of my bold predictions actually heading into last season was that Carter Hart would win the Vezina Trophy, so I was pretty far off with that one. He finished last season with a 3.67 goals against average and an .877 save percentage. That save percentage was far and away the worst in the league amongst goaltenders who played 20 or more games. Statistically and analytically, especially if you look at his expected goals, Carter Hart may have been the worst goaltender in the league last season. Now, obviously, we know Carter Hart isn't actually the worst goalie in the league. He just had a really bad season, and the Flyers in general had a bad year. It's not like Carter Hart had a great defense in front of him. Their defense last season was actually pretty bad, so this one is pretty self-explanatory. Carter Hart has to bounce back this season, especially with the Philadelphia Flyers being a team that wants to contend, and I'm pretty confident that he will. This is a guy who had a .917 save percentage as a rookie, .914 as a sophomore, and was a beast in the 2020 playoffs for the Flyers. There's just no way he has another season like the one that he just had, or anything close to it. It would honestly be kind of hard to replicate that. This next one is a guy I feel like I've talked about a lot lately for some reason, Patrik Laine, winger for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, I don't think it's necessarily important for the Columbus Blue Jackets that Patrik Laine has a big bounce back season. I mean, obviously they want him to play better and produce better than he did last year, but if Patrik Laine does does have another rough year, it's not like that would be the deciding factor on if the Blue Jackets make the playoffs or not or anything like that. To me, it's just really important for Patrik Laine that Patrik Laine bounces back. He's on a 1-year deal. He accepted his qualifying offer. I believe it was 7.5, something like that million. Now, he's still going to be an RFA at the end of the season, so the Blue Jackets will retain his rights, but this is Patrik Laine's opportunity to cash in. Say he has a 35 to 40 goal season, which we know Patrik Laine is capable of doing. The Columbus Blue Jackets are going to have to pay him. They paid the price to keep Zach Werenski around. I see them doing the exact same thing with Patrik Laine, given their history of losing star players to free agency or their star players asking for trades. And similar to Carter Hart, I'm pretty confident that Patrik Laine is going to have a bounce back year. He's just way too talented to have that type of season again production wise. It was just a weird season for Patrik Laine. Usually when big time goal scorers have an off year, you can see it in their shooting percentage, but when it comes to Patrik Laine, his shooting percentage was lower than past seasons, but it wasn't anything that would jump out at you and really catch your eye. He just wasn't shooting as much, the confidence wasn't there, and I think the biggest reason for that is because he was playing under John Tortorella and it was the furthest thing from a good fit, but luckily for Laine, that won't be the case this season. And now for the final player of the video, goaltender Freddie Andersen for the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina had a pretty weird offseason. They decided to go with a whole new goaltending tandem, trading away Alex Nedeljkovic to the Red Wings and then letting Mrazek walk in free agency and bringing in Antti Raanta and Freddie Andersen, with Freddie Andersen being the projected starter. I mean, they gave him the much bigger contract of the two, and with the Carolina Hurricanes being a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, they want to get over the hump that is the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Bringing in Freddie Andersen as your starting goaltender is a bit of a bold move considering the season he just had and the fact he's kind of been on the decline for the past couple seasons. Now with that being said, I do fully expect us to see a pretty big jump in Freddie Andersen's numbers from last year to this year. He's not a below 900 save percentage goaltender, we know he's better than that, and I do feel like you kind of have to take last year with a grain of salt because Freddie Andersen wasn't healthy. Even when he was playing games, he wasn't 100%. He's now had a full offseason to get 100% healthy. He's had a full training camp. We're now in the midst of preseason. Come opening night, Freddie Andersen definitely should be ready to go health-wise, and that alone I think means we'll see a big jump in his numbers, and also he's probably never played behind a defense as good as the Carolina Hurricanes. So that is going to do it for today's video, going over 5 NHL players who I think must bounce back in 2022, and for the most part I feel like all of these guys will bounce back. Pretty hard not to. All the players we talked about in this video for the most part just had the worst season of their career. I can't see it happening again, and like I said at the start of the video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts, so if there are any other players that we did not talk about today that you see having a big bounce back season in 2022, just be sure to let me know down below in the comment section. And if you've gotten this far in and you still haven't, please be sure to go down there and hit the like button. It's completely free and it really does help out the channel, or I wouldn't ask you guys to do it. It helps get the video pushed out more.